Hello, once again, I'm BR Schultz, SP500. Thank you for joining me. It's part 11, believe it or not, on our journey to the end of what I believe will be the end of the Great Depression in the summer of 2034, or maybe even the fall of 2034. And I believe we're about 265 weeks away from the macro peak in markets. That's right, I believe it'll be like the roaring 20s again into Q4 of 2030, and then followed by a Great Depression window from 2031 to 2034. Where AI takes away pretty much everything, and we have, the middle class obviously gets threatened the most. The working class, anyone that wants a job, is threatened the most during such recessions, right? So I think that will be a very difficult period worldwide economically. And so I think it's a great idea that Trump is trying to shore up Social Security and all these other programs and trying to protect against this, because I'm sure every economist knows that every 100 years we go through this 100-year test, the 1830s, the 1930s, and here we go again. So I believe that by 2030, late 2030, we'll hit a target of about 10.5 on the S&P 500. And after, a staggering defeat in April, I felt like I missed the bottom for all the wrong reasons after calling the peak at the end of November, after calling the peak in late February. So many things I did right, and then to miss the bottom on that big crash, I looked like a stinking fool, man. And I suffered pretty big loss in my account as well. So those of you who are new, don't think that I am perfect at this. Hopefully I don't come across that way. I've been bruised and beaten up pretty much in the markets many times, as well as in life. So but do I think that the model can seriously kick butt sometimes? I certainly do. So if I ever come across as like I think the model's going to kick butt, it's because I think the model can kick butt. And so anyways, because of my stupidity in April, obviously you take your invention apart, you try to figure out what's broken and how to make it work. So with that, I want to show you the technique I'm using for the VIX weekly data. It's a little bit different from the VIX daily. The scales a little bit differently, but that's where I'm learning that really the secret is in my models. It's scaling it correctly. And so I think I think we peaked around the predicted July 18th, 21st predicted peak, after the model predicted that the markets would bottom around the 24th, 25th of June. You can go back and watch those videos if you want. Actually predicted that Trump was going to blow up Iran's nuclear sites, believe it or not. A month before he did that, I think I made my video at the very end of May, and that prediction came true, and then the markets rocketed up, obviously, after the bottom in the market around June 23rd. So it was off by a day. Usually get like plus or minus a day. So like a 3 or 4 day window. So that was right that call was amazing. And then from there, predicted that the markets would peak around July 18th, 21st. I have a friend over in Europe, Great Britain, who I was telling for the longest time that the market was going to peak around July 18th, 21st. He said, no, that's too much, like 2024. And I said, that's what all models are saying. So here we are on July 21st, and I'll have to see if the highs on SPX 500 USD stick on tradingview.com. But I wanted to show you a pretty impressive backtest and forward testing that I think you're going to enjoy for today's video. Again, this is part 11. It's July 21st, 2025, and it's going to be a 10-year journey of videos that I'm creating. I'm not blogging anymore. I'm not putting my posts anywhere else. Everything's on YouTube. And again, I'm not a professional. I'm not licensed in any way, shape, or form. I have a very strong love of math. I have a minor in mathematics from college. I got kicked out of my economics class for my beliefs in how math works with the stock market and the economy. So all these great funny stories, I guess, at least funny to me. Maybe to others are not. And so anyways, that's the journey I've come to creating my models, trying to predict the future. And you'll find out that many times my models are accurate. And I find that many times when my models have the answer, I need to find a new technique, and I think that's where I'm at. So thank you for joining me on this 10-year journey. And the prediction for crypto to bottom around Father's Day 2025. Obviously, that's what the original prediction was with markets too. Well, crypto actually bottomed around Father's Day 2025, right? XRP, I was watching that around $2 around Father's Day, and then all of a sudden now it's around $3.50. So what a huge run in XRP. So the model was right about crypto, and I think that's what threw me off, is I tried to think that both were going to act like with the same behavior. And I do have weekly models for XRP USD, and I think that I can predict what the next major macro bottom is going to be in a lot of different instruments now, even though I'm not a professional in any way, shape, or form. So let's jump to the model. Okay, so this is the weekly VIX model. So the upper limit on this model is plus 200. The lower limit, I believe, is negative 100. So it'd be 0, 100, 200. Yeah, that's right. Now what you'll find is like that tabletop pattern on the slate gray, what I call the Einstein model, back in 2022 and 2023, that actually predicted, believe it or not, the epic peak in the VIX in April of 2025. So let me just say that one more time, because if you're new to my channel, you're going to be blown away if you take it at face value, right? If I'm not making this up, if this wasn't all mathematics, if everything I put in this model isn't repeatable, and this model does it all itself, right? So again, let me say that out loud. So those tabletops with the yellow diagonal line, you can connect them out. You can print screen this. You can check out the diagonal on your own. I didn't even have to update the graph. You know, all I had to do is drop in the data and let the graph update on its own. I didn't tweak the graph extensively. All I do is I update the parameters on where the top of the chart is. Okay, so if the top of the chart right now is at plus 200 in Excel. So let's say it doesn't sync right. So let's say I move the ceiling up to 250, right? But I'm not changing the formula for the zigzag graph down below. Okay. So with that said, this is kind of what got me into all this back when I first started doing this. I looked at something like that, that yellow diagonal line with weekly data for the VIX, and you just connect all those dots. You know, when you're a kid, I don't know how many people are my age on this. I'm in my 40s. When I was a young kid, you know, you watched the Pee Wee Herman show. You had a little song, you connect the dots, la 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 la. You know. Well, anyways, this is the closest thing I can come up to it. Is I just drew this diagonal line on it, right, and draw that all the way to the top of the graph, drop the line straight down, and that brings you to the middle of April 2025. And so first, that's kind of one of the first tests, right, is find a big capitulation in the VIX and then start back testing on other points. And so all the other back tests start working out really well, like the white diagonal line hits the middle of January, right? So that's another huge win for the model there. And then you can also see the white diagonal line from July 2024 into October of 2024. That also picked roughly the middle of January 2025. So what's my premise, or what's my tagline? Well, historical data predicts the future. That's why I got kicked out of my economics class in college. My professor was the vice president or something, chair president of the economics department for my university, and so I gave him my theory one day, and I got kicked out of class. He said, if you're gonna look at your stock model charts every day in class, and you're gonna hold to these theories that, you know, math predicts a large amount of the future, you can, you know, get out of here, because why would you need economists if math predicts the future? And I just, you know, I'm like, well, you know, I just think it predicts the future a lot more than what people give it credence for, right? So with that said, you can see how the orange diagonal line, so you have to treat the corners of the Einstein model graph the same as a turning point. So basically, I'm learning that these turning points, these jagged moves in the graph, are actually having a huge impact in the future. much greater than I would have ever thought when I first created these graphs. Yeah, it's my own formula, yada, 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 right? As I reposition myself on my creaky chair. So anyways, that orange diagonal line, basically you have to line it up on all the change in directional points, right? So that takes you out to the top of the graph, the diagonal, connecting all those points, connect the dots, la la la, and that takes you out to early August of 2025. So that's why I believe that there's going to be a huge capitulation in the VIX, or there's a high probability, right, of a huge capitulation in the VIX in early August. Could it be July 30th? Could it be July 31st? Could it be August 1st or August 5th? Yeah, it could be. So what would a huge capitulation look like in the VIX? It would look like a 5%, 7% drop in the SP500 is kind of my guess, because again, this is weekly VIX data. So I would assume that a big shift in the model to the upside to cause a peak in the VIX would mean that there'd be a big drop in the markets. So that's kind of the premise that I'm working with. Again, I'm not a financial professional. Please speak with a financial advisor. I don't have any licenses. I'm not licensed in any way, shape, or form to give financial advice. This is all my own opinion, theory, and mathematical thesis, if you will. If this is a master's class, I guess, in stock market timing. And then you can also see how the models are projecting that there will be a major spike in the VIX on a weekly scale into middle of October. So I imagine that will be the fiscal year or something, a budgetary thing for Congress will be going on. You'll see some type of October crash in markets, and they'll tell you all the news that goes along with it to make you believe that this is not mathematically driven, because a lot of people I've met probably 98%, 97% of people, maybe 99% of people believe that events are what drive markets. But my argument is no, it's the opposite. Mathematics drives the markets, and depending on how big the market crashes or dives, that's just the icing on the cake. And then the news tries to figure out what narrative or story they want to tag on to what happened, right? And obviously, I believe there's also some very advanced AI and stock market timing systems that are far greater foresight than my models. And then you can, unfortunately, some very people with advanced models could do some very bad things in the world, to make it look like the crash in the market was tied to this or that. But in my opinion, they're just taking advantage of stock market timing. Because why is it so interesting that I've made videos about June 24th, 25th, a month in advance, and then for Trump to come out and say that no one knew about the mission to blow up the nuclear sites in Iran, except for me and the bombers, right? Or a few secretaries of defense or whatever, right? But yet my models picked up that the stock market would bottom around June 24th or 25th. So that would be the dialogue I would have with my economics professor, right? If I was back in the day, I'd say, hey, my model is predicting that the stock market is going to bottom around June 24th or 25th. I don't know why. It's a month in advance, but my model sees this as a very concrete turning point in markets. And then all of a sudden, Trump comes out and says, hey, we did this secret mission that no one else knew about. No one could ever know about it. But then my stock market model was already predicting that would, that there'd be some major event right there. And that was, lo and behold, that was what the narrative was, right? That was, quote unquote, what happened that caused the market to spike into the July 3rd peak, of which, again, if you go look at the previous videos, I predicted that the models predicted that the markets would go up into July 3rd, and I said that there'd be like some kind of five-wave move up from there into July 18th, 21st peak. And lo and behold, I believe that's what we've done. And then, as you can see, I believe there's going to be a big spike in the VIX, or a culmination of some kind of high in the VIX around the first week in August. And then we're also going to have some major dump in the stock market, more than likely into mid-late October, for a major low in the market again there. So that's what I like about this VIX model. I was really hopeful that when I plugged in weekly data, that would really pull out the bigger themes, because I found that with the daily data and the VIX, you can kind of get lost because there's a lot of different trends that connect, right? And so it's easy to be kind of enamored with all the different touch points you can connect, and you need at least 3 to cause a future pricing move shift. So this is some pretty crazy stuff, I know. But yeah, if you look at this graph and study it, it's amazing, right? Because hopefully the first week in August comes along, you can flash back to this video and have your mind blown, and then in middle of October you can again look at this video and be like, your video is disgusting. How did you know that the VIX was going to hit some kind of on a macro scale, the VIX was going to spike into some kind of peak in the first week of August, and then late October, right? And then hopefully, by God's grace, if I get the Great Depression window right, even more people will be like, no way that you timed that many months in advance, and you started like some 340 video series, timing all this down for us. That's really the goal of it. That's why I'm talking about 2030 already. Some people trying to razz me about, I have no clue who these people are, right? So it could be my competition, or it could just be somebody that got beat up in April too, like me, with my bad timing. I don't know. But the reason why I keep on talking about 2030 and 2031 through 2034 is because I want to be on the record, right, for calling it, right? Because if the final macro peak in stock market occurs around Q4 of 2030, right, and then all of a sudden things starts falling apart, and the economy bottoms in the summer of 2034, or Q3 of 2034, and I provide a video series that predicted it all. Not only do I prove my thesis from college, so it's kind of like getting closure, if you will, but hopefully I get an A in that class. Maybe I can write the professor back, in 2034 and say, hey, I'd like to get my grade bumped up from a B to an A, mister. So anyways, that'd be pretty hilarious, wouldn't it? Anywho, if you want to donate to my work, maybe it's 2034 when you're watching this, or maybe you've watched since now into 2034 and you've made a lot of money or saved yourself a lot of money, and you want to donate, you want to help plow some money into my GoFundMe, because I'm trying to obviously reach like a record of $700,000 by the end of 2034. Or you want to share my work, that would mean a lot to me, because that's why I'm creating this giant 10-year journey vlog. I don't know how many people would be that committed to their theory, but I think this is like a true master's class, right? Because I have to really believe in my theory, and then obviously I have to hit a lot of sweet shots, like Michael Jordan, in order to prove my theory along the way. And again, I think over this course of this video that I've shared tonight, I proved that that's happened. That you can watch some of the videos from late 2024 and 2025. You can see where I screwed up, but you can also see how many times I hit it right too. So you can see that the accuracy is there. And then you probably read my mind. You're probably already thinking about this, and you're saying, hey, well, don't you have a version of this for like Bitcoin or XRP? And I'd be like, yeah, I do, but I don't want to show it really. Not yet. Maybe in a little while from now, I got to keep people interested in my work. I got to get you to share my work and say, hey, this guy, like, he called that Father's Day 2025 would be the bottom for crypto. And lo and behold, he blew the socks off of crypto. And all the guys at work, quite a few guys at work, talk about XRP with me. So I'm sure they'll be chatting it up tomorrow about XRP. But anyways, this is kind of my new technique I'm using. Before, the top of the chart would only go up to like 100. So positive 100, negative 100, like we're taught in control charts and statistics class. And then obviously after so many failures, I'm like, what if like the Federal Reserve figured it would be too easy to do that, right? So maybe they did something like I did, or maybe this is just a behavior sequence that is common in mathematics in the pricing of instruments, and I just stumble upon it, which is probably more than likely the case. But just maybe, the Fed manipulates it in such a way that, on some kind of scale, But either way, the model picks it up, right? So it's quite interesting. So hopefully I intrigue you, and hopefully hopefully this becomes more lucrative over time, this new thesis, new theory. And I'm also creating macro timing, because with markets going into their final decade high, that final high at the end of the decade, it's going to be very, very hard to time the markets short term, because you could still have a 70-point drop in the day and the market could still end up positive for the day. So it's very hard as you start climbing the roaring 20s mountain into the end of the decade to get crashes and things of that nature. They're not the same throughout the different parts of the economy, right? So especially when you're at the beginning of 2002, 2003 compared to like the late 90s, the market behaves differently, right, at the end of 30-year cycles. So that's why as we get closer and closer to the end of the decade, it's going to get harder and harder to call short-term plays. Because even though you might be right, you're still going to lose a lot of money, because if you try to go short anywhere in a super hot market, the whole thing's going to work against you on the short term. But on a macro scale, if you can figure out whether the VIX is going to hit some kind of macro peak on a weekly scale like this, then more than likely you can make money, right? So going short at the top here in July 18th, 21st, what I did, holding to exit my shorts around early August. If we're down 5% on July 28th, or if we're down 6 or 7% into July 28th, then yeah, maybe I just exit there. And then I look to go long around August 1st, 2nd, 3rd, somewhere in there, scaling, I don't know. But then you can probably surmise for yourself. You're like, oh, okay, so October 20th, roughly mid-October, maybe it's October 15th is the bottom, maybe it's October 20th is the bottom of the stock market. So maybe 4 weeks before that, end of September, could be the peak in the stock market, could be the Fed date in September, could be a double top. You could have a peak at the September Fed meeting, and then you could have a retest that high or a little higher high at the end of September with month-end window dressing, and then we crash for the first 2 weeks in October. That could very well be the case. I'll make another video about that when we get there, but you already know that there's going to be a big spike in the VIX with a peak in the VIX. Again, this is a peak model, so looking for a peak in the VIX around that first week in August, and looking for a peak in the VIX around mid-October. Right, so that'd be the low in the market. So that's where I'm going to go long, is roughly where these, if I were to lock in this exact date, right, if I were to be exactly August 1st or 4th or 5th or something, right, that'd be the day I go long, right? I'd be looking to bleed out my VIX positions or my short positions into the bottom, and then obviously I'd be building my long positions around the bottom, right? So that'd be, in theory, textbook perfect movement, right? And so, but what I want to do with these videos is kind of show you how I get to my thesis, how I'm changing up my technique, and hopefully over time you're like, wow, your change in technique is revolutionized your macro Einstein model timing. So that's obviously that's the goal, right? I don't want to do short-term timing on my blog or anything and then have it blow up on people as markets try to keep going higher, 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 higher. And some people are like, when's it going to crash? When's it going to crash? I'm like, we're going into a 30-year peak. It's may not crash that easily, or when it crashes, it's going to be lightning fast. You might go down for 2 hours, 100 points in the S&P, and then bounce back 125 points into the rest of the day. It just might be, I don't know, crazy going into the peak into roughly the end of 2030. Anywho, if you watch this whole video, kudos to you. I did not plan on making a 30-minute video tonight, but I'm really hyped about this new technique, and then obviously I'll try to time it with or fine-tune it with other models that I have. But I really enjoy this model, right? Because I've always wanted to time the VIX. Honestly, it's always been like a passion of mine to get to the point where I can accurately utilize the VIX pricing to help me understand market movement, because I figured if you can master the VIX, you could really know markets well, right? If you know where the peak in the VIX is, man, you walk back 3 weeks and you know basically where the peak in the markets is, and because market sell-offs are about 15 to 20 trading days, right, in length when you have a sell-off. So you walk back 3 to 4 weeks from like October 20th, and you're getting like the 1st of October could be a peak, right? and then you could just sell for 15 to 17 trading days, right? So if you know where the peak in the VIX is, that'd be revolutionary, right? You could really leverage that to make a lot of money, because in the beginning of August, I want to go long. And then in the middle of October, late October, I want to go long again, right? So that's kind of my game plan right now. So hopefully you've enjoyed this. Hopefully you found it very intriguing. Again, I can't drive home the point enough. It's because I'm changing the upper limits of the graph. You can see that the sawtooth Einstein model is not reaching all the way to the top of the graph. So I've extended the upper limit, so to speak. So the upper limit is plus 200. It was normally like plus 100, things like that. And so I really like this. So I'm trying to take this weekly, as you might imagine, and then sync it with my daily. Yeah, so you can really see the benefit of both. And it's not a hard graph to really try to utilize. Sometimes the waves on the short-term graph are very they get confusing, because there's just a lot of different things going on there that can drive me wild. But I really like this graph because it has sawtooth points. It really cuts down. It changes directions on a dime, and those really sharp points are amazing. The effect they have on the future, right, of the VIX and of crashing markets. So again, looking for the markets to drop now from today. Today's end of day, July 21st. So I'm looking for markets to drop, the SP 500 specifically, to drop into roughly August 1st for a bottom, and looking for about 5 to 7% drop. If we're lucky, maybe we get 10%. My buddy that I've known for a long time, he's pretty good with pricing calls. He's the guy that told me one day I would become a really good market timer. That was his prediction about me becoming like a WD Gann of sorts someday. I actually got back in contact with him. He thinks it's going to be like a 10 or 12% decline into August when this thing finally starts. I don't. He's much better at pricing than I am, and I can only say that I see, from a timing perspective, I see that the bottom of the market should be that first week in August, and most of your crashes in markets are usually about 5 to 7, 8% drops, right? So if you say 10% and then only drop 6%, everyone gets mad at you and says, "Oh, you missed it. It should have been another, it should have been double. It should have been double." But if you say 5 to 7, then people are happy. When it's, then when it's 9% drop or 8% drop, you get a pat on the back. But if you say it's going to be a 10% drop and only drops 5 or 6, then everyone spits at you. But if you say 5 or 6 and then you get 10, then, you over-delivered, so to speak, even though you didn't deliver anything but the timing. But still, obviously, people make a little more money that way. Makes sense. I understand. So I don't want to overpromise. I want to do my best to be conservative, have great accuracy, and be one of the top 3 people that you listen to. Hopefully you're listening to other people. Again, I'm not licensed in any way, shape, or form. I'm not a professional. I'm just some guy that loves math and Excel and has built models over the last decade or so. And and plus this model gives me a lot more free time, right? I'm not sitting there staring at a bunch of short-term models trying to figure out what day is what. But it did help me kind of pick out July 18th, 21st peak in markets. I was emailing the guy that's the pricing guru that I talk to all the time. The title of the emails I kept on saying them back at the beginning of July were the peak at July 18th, 21st. And he said, "No way, man." He said, that's the peak of last year. And I said, "You watch it." That's where I'm going to wait for. So to really go big short and see what, if the markets can crash. So anyways, that orange diagonal line is really of interest to me because, it's just a thing of beauty to me. It's art. If I could sign this and sell it and people would actually buy it and frame it somewhere in their house, I don't think there's anyone in the world that would do that. But, it's those things that we're passionate about that hopefully end up helping us help others. And then hopefully, again, this becomes lucrative over time and demands very little of my time, right? Because I just get to connect the dots, And you can see like that blue line, like that's pretty easy. That teal diagonal, like the first 2 points are on August 2022 and December of 2022, and then you just bounce it off the top of the peak in the graph in January 2024 and April 2024, and that takes you out right out to October. I mean, how hard is that, right? It took me 30 seconds, 10 seconds to draw the line, and then know that there's going to be a huge spike in the VIX, and the peak in the VIX should be around, around the 20th, or maybe just before the 20th in October. And then you'll probably take out a holiday or two, so it probably will be pretty close to October 20th will be the peak in the VIX. So here I am saying it right now. You're going to write it down on a piece of paper, and then on October 20th, you're probably going to go onto YouTube. You're going to go down in the comment section and say, dude, your video from July 21st saying that there's going to be a monster peak in the VIX around October 20th. I don't even know if that's a weekday. Let's see before I start flapping my gums here. October 20th is a Monday. Dude, you just predicted that there was going to be Black Monday on October 20th. Just like 1987, the whole market collapsed and blah, blah, blah. I'm not saying that there will be. I'm just saying, it'd be funny if someone came in the comment section and did that. But no, there should be a peak in the VIX around October 20th. It's kind of eerie because that is similar to the Black Monday of 1987. And yes, that's what I said about I said about February and March of 2025, and it came true, right? There was like a 20% drop in the SP 500. So that prediction actually came true about 1987 moment in early 2025. So that was a highlight. I don't know how many of you remember that, but I got a kick out of it. I texted a lot of my relatives and said, hey, get ready, you're about to see something in the markets that doesn't happen too often. You're going to see like a 1987 waterfall in the markets. And sure enough, we got it. So that was a feather in the old cap. So I'll have to have my kids back on here again to narrate some of this because, yeah, it's getting to the point where I think it's like Legos, right? Because if I were to throw this at you, probably some of you could probably just grab a ruler and like a drafting class, and you'd have this all marked up in 2 minutes and be like, okay, this is where the peaks and the VIX are going to be. Thanks for the weekly data. I'm out of here. Yeah. So that's what I'm trying to get it to. When I first started this, I wanted to be, smart as a fifth grader or something, smarter than a fifth grader. That's where I wanted to get it to, that it would be so easy that someone could beat Wall Street with a crayon or a pencil and a ruler. And that's kind of where this all began. And yes, I did love drafting class. Mr. Carl was my teacher, so he was a retired Marine, and he was the best drafting teacher ever. So yeah, so that's it for today. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I think I've long overspent my time here. I don't have any last minute slogans or anything, but I think I've done a pretty good job, I think, tonight of try to explain what's going on in these graphs. I've given you enough time to stare at the graph and be like, wow, that's pretty crazy that you could see those tabletops in your model, and it would extrapolate out to exactly the 200 axis drop down and hits mid-April 2025, and that was where the macro low is, and then everything else sinks as well. So that's what I'm trying to do, trying to create some shock factor and hopefully be extremely lucrative. So here's to going short for me into roughly August 1st, and wish me luck in that. And until next time, and until next video, I wish you the best as well. And yeah, I guess the next video will probably be where the peak will be. So look for a video at least, in early September, more than likely, because I'm guessing the peak is either going to be right before the Fed meeting or the end of September 2025. So then the VIX can bottom out there, and then it can blast to a macro peak around October 20th, 2025, and we'll see if 1987 can repeat itself. I'm BR Schultz, SP500. Thank you so much. Until next time, take care. Again, this is just a snippet of the GoFundMe page. I didn't want you to forget that, so thank you. And please bookmark it, whatever, and watch it over the next decade or into late 2034. Thank you so much.